Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Chris Shang. Today we have Kevin McIntyre, who is the CRO of Dealfront. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Chris, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, tell us a little bit about Dealfront, what you guys do, what kind of company you guys work with, and then I'd love to dive into your a little bit of your resume that we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am, as you said, the CRO at Dealfront. Coming up on 2 years next month. Can't really believe it. This is my first CRO opportunity, and as you mentioned, we'll talk a bit about my past and experience and how I got to where I am today. But Dealfront is actually a result of a merger between two European headquartered organizations. So midway through 2022, they were brought together by a growth equity company, Great Hill Partners, based in Boston. So the two organizations were Leadfeeder. Leadfeeder provides IP company data and IP company lookup and enrichment, very much focused on kind of a global play for helping organizations understand companies and activities coming to their website to inform marketing and sales decisions. And the second organization was EchoBot, a German headquartered organization focused on sales intelligence. So B2B company and contact data and sales triggers for sales and marketing teams. And bringing these two organizations together, we've created and rebranded as Dealfront, providing a platform for sales and marketing professionals really looking to find and target the right accounts that are primed for conversion, being able to act upon first party intent data and have a robust data asset of company contacts to be able to engage and hopefully land your next best customer. I lost your audio.
Sorry about that. So is
Nope.
there a particular company size or stage or industry that you guys tend to work with more than others?
Yeah, we do. Well, given the nature of the industry that we're in, I mean, all B2B companies generally need data in order to engage the market. Now, there's varying levels and layers of sophistication across those industries and companies. We do really well at SMB and mid market. I think, as a lot of organizations, we are looking to kind of slowly creep up market. We've had the pleasure and the honor of winning many large global kind of Fortune 2000 profile organizations. Very happy to have them as a part of our customer base, but it isn't really like our sweet spot for where we proactively try to win.
Got it. Awesome. Lots of things to cover there. But before we do, would love to kind of get a better understanding around how you landed in sales in the first place. Um, it seems like 80% of the conversations we have with sales leaders or marketing leaders end up getting there through happenstance or coincidence of some sort. So curious as to what your journey looked like. How did you realize that was something you wanted to get into, let alone you had the skill set for it?
Yeah, I mean, you go all the way back to university education, and I had my kind of eye set on the kind of financial management. It was something that interested me, but I graduated kind of post 2008 market crash, and then kind of realized who in their right mind is going to invest their money with a 22-year-old fresh out of school. So, against my kind of original judgment, ended up taking a kind of entry level position at a local tech company in Pittsburgh, where I went to school. And it was a startup tech company in this place called Enterprise Search. It's not really kind of a robust category anymore. It's kind of been commoditized over the years. But it was a really great organization focused on helping companies kind of navigate and find internal data assets and navigating unstructured content. So I started out in more of a business analyst role and kind of morphed it into really the first sales ops position in the company. And that's where I really got honed in on like sales process and just everything end to end across. At the time, it wasn't really called the revenue bow tie, but I know that is a term that we're embracing now, and just kind of that comprehensive prospect and customer journey, because I had the opportunity to touch so many different parts of the revenue engine, supporting and standing up a Salesforce environment and navigating pricing and helping a bit with like customer assignment and territory mapping and working really closely with marketing on some other go-to-market projects. And that really kind of piqued my interest in kind of operationalizing like revenue and go-to-market motions. And I had the fortunate opportunity of being acquired by IBM 2 years into that first opportunity, and that's where I feel I got my real MBA. And I'd say my 6 to 7 years at IBM really provided the incredible experience to help me get to where I am today. I would not be here without what I went through. It was at times a very painful experience, a lot of long hours, red tape, bureaucracy, but what you get exposed to in terms of process, amazing thought leaders, getting to meet with incredible customers all over the world across like different technology and like solving real business problems was truly an honor to have the opportunity to go through that. Over time, learned that I didn't want to become a kind of career IBMer and wanted to open up new opportunities. And through my personal network, landed at ZoomInfo in Boston. So I'm sure a lot of folks here are very familiar with ZoomInfo. So I was with the company that was based in Boston prior to the acquisition by DiscoverOrg in 2019, with the subsequent rebrand of ZoomInfo and maintaining that original identity. So I was there for a couple of years. Really great experience going through that acquisition. Was focused on revenue operations, revenue enablement, and go-to-market strategy. And any title with the word strategy in it, I know sounds fluff. So at the end of the day, it was really around like orchestration and like really defining go-to-market motions and sales process and ensuring that sales leaders and teams had what they need in order to be successful with their prospects and customers. I pivoted to go back towards kind of the data and analytics space, which is where I focused a lot of my time at IBM in global sales leadership roles. So I joined a company, EnterpriseDB, focused on really operationalizing and strengthening enterprise adoption of the Postgres database. So again, revenue operations, revenue enablement. I led the global commercial sales team, selling to mid-market groups globally. And then my wife and I packed up our bags and had the opportunity to move overseas to Italy while working for EnterpriseDB. And shortly after moving there, I was approached by this Dealfront opportunity. And because given that 80% of the revenue stream coming from Europe, and I happen to find myself in Europe. So you talk about some things just kind of fall in your lap. If I hadn't been in Europe at the time, my first time CRO role would not have come to me. My experience with ZoomInfo certainly played into the attraction for Dealfront. Dealfront plays in the space of kind of ZoomInfo, Cognism, Apollo, and other B2B tech companies. Or B2B data companies. So I'll pause there. I don't know if there's any particular things that are of interest or you want to dig into, but I will say that my path to where I find myself now has been much more kind of operational than traditional like SDR, sales rep, sales leader, VP of sales, et cetera. So a different path, but I do feel strongly in a CRO role there's more in common with the COO than there is with necessarily just like a VP or SVP of sales, because you are truly trying to operationalize and strengthen the revenue engine. And there's so many different pieces that need to come together, and the projects and initiatives that need to be kind of planned and tackled and managed in order to get the revenue engine humming in the way that any business wants.
Yeah. I'm curious, being this kind of like that first step into that role, what has been, some of the surprises or some of the expectations that were met in terms of what you anticipated?
Coming into the CRO role specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I think everything, that's a bit extreme. A lot of what I was looking forward to was not what I anticipated it being. And to anybody out there involved in a company going through like an M&A process, and it's a very different thing when maybe, I don't know, $5 million euro organization gets acquired by something 20x its size. Like you kind of get pulled in, and there's a process to getting incorporated into a larger organization. This was very much the merger of two equals, and you look at one company being decentralized, very multicultural, remote first, another very centralized, kind of German, all in the same office. One company product led growth, another more traditional sales led growth, and trying to form a new company identity to rally the whole organization around. And within a revenue organization, having two heterogeneous customer groups and different sales teams, and trying to bring that together. I was building a kind of completing a puzzle. Like I coming into the CRO role, like wanting to, I mean, not just prove myself. I mean, really wanting to like earn trust of the team as someone coming into it for the first time. And then you want to get into like CRO like things, right? And helping the team like define their go-to-market motions, build the right management system around different processes, kind of inspect different kind of pieces across that revenue bow tie of like where to dive into efficiency, where to drive improvement, and how to like make big bets and strengthen that. But like so much of what I was doing was just focused on like team building and like addressing company culture within the group, and trying to understand how to not totally disrupt like demand gen and pipeline build, and just give people space to just keep closing business and make people happy while trying to like in the background like shift towards this new thing that we're trying to build. um, I can't emphasize and stress how important it is, particularly if you're in a remote environment, um, just the need to over communicate and find ways to repeat yourself and find different forums to help people like understand the changes in direction of any organization. Um, so I hope that that provides some context.
Yeah, I mean, it was more of a leading question, I think, because of the fact a lot of these interviews that we've done, with senior leaders or in the C-suite or experts in their respective fields, that tends to be the common thread, right? Which is like when you level up, it's not so much about the toolbox and the tools that you have at your disposal. It's basically sharing how to leverage those tools and communicating it in a way to get buy-in from the rest of the team as to this is the plan, this is the blueprint, and we're going to use these tools to execute against this blueprint. But it's that communication part that ends up being integral for them to level up in that leadership role. So a lot of very similar things you're probably going through right now, but just wanted to kind of get understanding from you as well as in real time as somebody who's going through it. Super interesting. Has there been anything that you feel like, based on what you just kind of described, matches, well, I guess like that you feel like you can already lean into based on your current skill set? And if you're lacking on certain skill sets of that, what are you going to level up on that? Meaning like, are you finding mentorship guidance, or are you looking at the other C-suite around you, or the founders, or what have you, to have that discussion? Or are there any other third party, resources that you're using?
Yeah, and I'll start with with the latter half of that question. So looking at um, skill sets I'm looking to build up personally for myself, but across the team. And what I see across my organization right now specifically is I have a lot of kind of younger, kind of up and coming, first time leaders. Leadership I respect, and I'm thrilled to be growing within the organization with them. Um, but they can all stand to benefit from additional kind of leadership and management training. Just as myself, I mean, we're none of us are kind of an exception to that. So I personally struggle with that a bit, and it's is that on me to help ensure that team leads and like first line managers through my VPs are all leveling up across all areas of leadership and communication and how to work with their teams and how to coach people properly and things from call coaching to potential like personnel issues through mentorship to their own teammates, and how much of my time needs to go into that type of work versus just like what the business needs across like metrics, numbers, systems, tools, process. And I don't have a good answer for it right now, in full honesty. Like I'm still trying to learn how much of my energy and like my leadership's energy and working with people across the organization goes into like internal learning development, skill refinement, particularly with management and leadership, versus seeking like external thought leadership in groups that do this because they're experts in it and they work and partner with teams either like in perpetuity or for point in time engagements. And personally, just speaking out loud is I do think going into next year, we could benefit from working with some external parties to help kind of level up the leadership team, just
Yeah,
as a part of everybody's growth and trajectory.
makes sense. And it also, I think, like it helps sometimes to have like, you know, um, a third party that's, somewhat removed and has a new set of lenses to kind of come in and maybe potentially diagnose things or encourage others, or also just kind of like be another sounding board or voice within the room.
And also being able to just be focused on it,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
like at any given point, there's 37 things going through my head, and my leaders all have the same thing. And to be able to put the dedicated time on like leadership training, management training, coaching, it's hard. It seems like, well, duh, make space for it. It's so important, but it's hard when you have other obligations within the
yeah,
business.
yeah. I was speaking to somebody yesterday who is like, he's been published in Harvard Business Review a few times, doesn't have any real world sales experience, but is like a data scientist around sales.
Mm-hmm.
And spoke to a lot of things that, yeah, I think we kind of anecdotally come to conclusions on. And then he's using data and sales conversations uh, being aggregated from like millions of conversations, and then taking that data to analyze to either debunk or validate some of these anecdotal proof points. And I think it's always interesting to kind of like hear what somebody like that is coming up with, seeing,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and it's things that sometimes you're so deep in the weeds that you know that it's probably there. You know that you want the data to back up some of this. You want some of the science around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it does help point and give confidence in terms of directionally where you want to lead a team to go down, right? Because it gives you tangible data to back up whatever the assumptions are, the directions you're trying to do. I'm curious as to like, you've been there for a couple of years now. Um, has there been, has your priority shifted at all from when you first came in? As it relates back to the market, I think like especially when you probably started, there
Mm-hmm.
was I don't know exactly when, but like if you're talking about 2 years ago, like pre SVB kind of thing, I feel like there's a different kind of headspace, and then post
Yeah,
SVB, and then also with interest rates and cost of capital becoming more expensive, the trickle down effect of that um,
sure.
on buyers and just the economy, and like how people are looking at digesting or implementing new tools. Curious as if you like that's shape shifted anything around your responsibilities and priorities.
Yeah, definitely. And it's been at the heart of where a lot of time, energy, and effort has gone. And I think all of us in B2B tech or SaaS can appreciate that we're going through kind of a phase shift. And not going through it, like we've gone through it. I think that it's no longer like this golden age of SaaS growth at all costs, easy access to capital funding, and just you had this panic during the pandemic and everybody just buying up technology because, hey, we're remote, we need all this stuff. And all these companies had these artificial booms. And then you couple it with some of the changes we've experienced in the global markets, plus with, I think, companies having a lot of excess tech on the shelf that they didn't really need to buy necessarily. And all of that starts ending to put pressure on your customer bases and your recurring revenue stream. And all of a sudden, everybody who's focused on these incredible growth streams driven primarily from new business now have all of these customers who perhaps aren't kind of quite as happy, they're not quite as engaged, and then there's pressure on net retention and gross retention. And that became a really big priority for me right away, was understanding the impact on our own customer base, because both the two legacy organizations, Leadfeeder and EchoBot, had very similar experiences during the pandemic. They saw some of their best growth years ever, which was not going to be sustainable in the new world that we're in. So I guess one of the learnings for me very quickly, which I didn't really have to pay quite as much attention to before being CRO, is looking at efficiency metrics and the sustainability of the business, and the LTV to CAC ratios and CAC payback ratios, and understanding the different go-to-market motions, what's inefficient, what's not efficient, where do we have to drive change to make this sustainable. And one of the things that we've been working on for a very long time, and it's finally coming to fruition for us, and it's something I'm really proud of, is the organization truly, and I mean truly, understanding its ICP. And I think a lot of people say, yeah, we have our ideal customer profile. I bet 4 out of 5 people or respondents have it written on a PowerPoint or Google slide, and it's saved in Google Drive, or it's in an enablement platform somewhere. It's done as a part of sales onboarding, and that's kind of it, right? They can say it's this industry, it's these employees, this geography, but you still take anything that comes to you. You still target like anything that moves, and it doesn't really influence the way that you're running your business. And over the course of the last year or so, we've been able to scrutinize and analyze our customer base to understand the cohorts of customers that retain the best. Didn't look at win rates, because it's very possible you're winning customers that don't stay with you, right? And I bet there's a lot of listeners that have good win rates and customers that like your product or service, but when they start using it, maybe not delivering recurring value, and they leave. So we were very focused on looking at the customers that have better net retention, have better gross retention, and we've been able to categorize across our customer base by use case the top performing cohort, the very poor performing cohort, and the one in the middle that's acceptable. And what we've been able to do in breaking our market and our customers into 3 segments, we've been able to completely change how we're going to market. What we can do now is, I can tell you, when I look at demand gen reports and look at MQLs for the team, I can look at product qualified leads that are going through a trial experience. I can tell you which category they fit in. I can look at my sales pipeline for the month, for the quarter, for the year, break it into these different categories. I can tell you win rates by category. I can tell you our ARR balance across the business, how many customers are in each category, what the revenue stream is, and at the close of every month, what our NRR was in each of these categories. And now we're orchestrating marketing campaigns and outbound sales engagements specific to that top segment. So we're starting to proactively change the composition of our demand gen funnel and our pipeline, so we're winning more and more of this top cohort. And I'm telling you how meaningful it is. Throughout the first half of the year, even though this top cohort only represents about 25 to 30% of our total revenue, 80% of our ARR growth in the first half of the year came from this top cohort. And that's without us manipulating anything. That just happened, but now we have the knowledge of it, and it's orchestrated and instrumented throughout our entire go-to-market systems and data and reporting. and now how we're going to market now. I don't think many companies can do this. And I think what we've done, and I'm proud to say, like, of what the team is starting to achieve, like, I feel this is a world-class approach to like truly understanding your ICP. So you talk about like something that's been consuming a lot of time, of how we're adjusting to like the new reality of B2B tech and SaaS, winning the best customers that get value and want to stay with you, and you start to focus on when to retain versus just when to buy, I think is what a lot of companies are struggling with and
Yeah.
need to start embracing.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I think that's so critical. I think like, I mean, I've been preaching about like doing a TAM, SAM analysis like every quarter for companies for the past like 5 years. And I think usually when I pull people in a room, less than 25% of them are actually knowing what those definitions are, what the acronyms actually stand for. That really is, I think your ICP is, especially for earlier stage companies, it's a moving, growing target that you need
Mm-hmm.
to analyze, right? Like every quarter. And whatever you think your TAM is really not what's serviceable today. It's perhaps what's going to look good on an investment deck, but it's not like
Yeah.
real in terms of who's going to get the most value from your product today. I think people forget to think about your product is not the perfect vision of what you thought it's going to be on day one. You're going to grow into that potentially in 5 to 10 years. Um, so I love kind of like, doing that deep dive around it. As we're kind of wrapping up on time, I would love to kind of just, a little bit more personal of a question, but yeah,
Sure.
it's still being, just being, where you've been Dealfront now for the past couple of years, I'm sure learning quite a bit in real time. But what do you see for yourself over the next year, couple of years? Do you feel like you really have a great opportunity here at Dealfront to really kind of level up, professionally as well as like grow your career and your skill sets? Or do you feel like, do you have an itch to ever start your own thing or be more of like an advisor or take on that type of role?
I appreciate the question. I haven't honestly thought a whole lot about it. I'm so focused on what we're doing here at Dealfront and getting this right, because I do think we have a really interesting opportunity ahead of us. I think the value proposition of these two organizations coming together and being differentiated, particularly in the European space. I mean, we sell into North America and Europe, but I think with a focus within Europe allows us to stand out among many other competitors that are like household names in the space. I think also with a focus on leveraging like first party intent data and companies who are interacting with your brand and know who you are and giving a reason to reach out in context is important in this space now. I mean, all of us. I mean, inbox and LinkedIn messages. It's a swamp,
Yep.
and it's really hard to stand out. And even though that we're a provider of B2B company and contact data, I'm very much like anti the spray and pray and spam cannon approach that so many organizations are taking, and from multiple domains to thousands of companies and thousands of contacts and unpersonalized stuff and just blasting away. It's detrimental to us all. I mean, I've joked before in other forums that like sales is ruining sales, and if we don't like clean things up, we're making everything worse for everybody. And I think helping sales and marketing teams who have to continue doing their job, they have to continue building pipeline, they have to unearth opportunities for their business, helping them do that in a way that I think is like respectful of your prospects, but being able to engage them because there's context and because you truly believe that you can help like solve a business problem for them is a way that long term is going to be more sustainable. So it's I'm really excited about that and what we're doing here, and so my head is totally in the game here. I mean, beyond Dealfront, whether I want to be continued in senior leadership positions of other companies, we'll see. the tech landscape and what AI is doing and transforming kind of in and around it's hard to know what's ahead of us 2, 3, 4 years from now. I mean, none of us could even spell Chat GPT probably a year and a half ago, and look what it's doing, right? Um, I do have a dream of getting out at tech at some point and doing something that's more aligned to passions around. I have this dream of just kind of opening up like a real handcrafted kind of pizza kitchen after spending time in Italy. But I know that's not going to resonate with much of the audience here.
No, you'd be surprised, man. You'll actually be surprised. I feel like, you know, yeah, I feel like that's something that's important. Understanding people's whys and what they're doing, sometimes it's very much tied into whatever it is that we're talking about on these calls. Sometimes it's not necessarily a direct alignment, but everything is, I mean, I think you know this is like, it's people buy from people, and whether
Yep.
that's sales or marketing or, position, standing up a company, I think the human narrative becomes much more critical and important, especially post-pandemic when we're literally sitting in other people's homes, right? Like through
Yeah.
video.
I think I mean, that's a lot of what it is for me. I mean, I enjoy the space we're in. I enjoy technology, but it is the people we work with, solving problems together and building and creating something that's more exciting to me. Like it might be borderline inappropriate to say like I'm not super passionate about like just being like a tech revenue and sales leader, but what I am passionate about is like solving problems that help customers and trying to put the right pieces and guidance and structure in place to help the people at this company feel that like when they come into work every day that they're making a difference. They can connect kind of the 6, 8, 10, 12 hours that they're doing and how that advances like company goals and initiatives, and working with a lot of great people along the way. I mean, that's what does it for me. But it's exhausting. It is.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I get it. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for taking the time, Kevin. Lots of great nuggets in here, lots of great insights, and just I appreciate you sharing your experience.
Absolutely, Chris. Anytime.
Sure.